It's no secret that Alec Baldwin is about as anti-gun as they come. For crying out loud, he was part of a group called No Rifle Association. He's also an actor who hated guns so much that he refused to learn the basic rules of gun safety, and thus, when someone handed him a gun and told him it was a cold gun, i.e. loaded with blanks, instead of verifying it himself, he assumed it was true, then proceeded to break the first rule of gun safety by pointing it at someone, pulling the trigger, and killing them. I don't enjoy the thought of taking human life, so if I ever had to use my gun in self-defense, I'll likely need some therapy, so I can only imagine what Alec is going through, knowing he took a life of someone due to his negligence. I don't enjoy making this video, and I really don't want to, but there are some things that I feel need to be said since the world is paying attention to this tragic accident. It goes without saying that this tragedy was incredibly avoidable, but the reason why this happened is precisely because Alec Baldwin is anti-gun. Hear me out. People keep calling the gun used in this accident a prop gun. It isn't a prop gun, it's a real gun. Just because it's on a movie set doesn't make a real gun any less real. Problem is, the actors in Hollywood who are anti-gun like Alec Baldwin engage in an amazing feat of mental gymnastics to rectify the cognitive dissonance that occurs from the hypocrisy of them using real guns in their movies to make millions of dollars. Thus, they really convince themselves that these guns aren't real. You see, contrary to popular belief, guns are incredibly safe as long as you always follow the basic rules of gun safety. And even then, you can get away with breaking one of the rules and no one will ever be hurt. You can point a gun at someone, but if you never pull the trigger, no one gets hurt. If you pull the trigger but point the gun in a safe direction, no one gets hurt. If I'm honest, you only need one gun safety rule, and the likelihood of something like this happening would be close to zero. Treat all guns as if they're loaded. That's it. If you do that, you'll instinctively never point it at someone. You'll instinctively keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. You'll instinctively become more aware of what's in front and behind your target. This is all shit that I learned from YouTube when I first got into guns. People like Alec Baldwin and the anti-gun lobby love to wax poetic about safety and saving lives. But I've never met a group of people more obsessed with gun safety than the gun community. It's borderline insanity how obsessed the gun community is with safety. It doesn't even have to be with a real gun. I did a CQB course with the airsoft gun, and in one of the drills, I sort of kind of maybe flagged a guy's leg. But it was with an airsoft gun. But my comment section was filled with people telling me how terrible of a human being I was, and rightfully so. I personally thought it was a bit overkill, but I'd rather be overly safe than, well, what happened here? I said all that to say if Alec Baldwin spent more time learning the rules of gun safety instead of vilifying guns and gun owners, I promise you this tragic accident would never have happened. Truth be told, it's embarrassing how ignorant people in the US are about gun safety, considering we're the most armed country in the world. Everyone in this country should know the 4 rules of gun safety like we know the Pledge of Allegiance. We know when it comes to kids, sex is inevitable as they get older. So, we give them sexual education as soon as it's appropriate to do so. How is it we don't do the same with gun safety? Alec Baldwin is 63 freaking years old and makes a living using guns in movies. And he doesn't know that no matter what the person who just handed you the gun tells you or shows you, once you get a gun in your hand, you check it to see if it's loaded. Everyone in the gun community knows that everyone thinks their gun is unloaded right up until a bullet comes flying out of the gun after the person you just handed it to double checks it. This is gun safety 101, but a 63-year-old man who's been using guns in movies for decades doesn't know this. That is inherently the problem with the gun conversation in this country. It's a stupid conversation that's more about defending ideology on both sides than it is about dealing with the reality. The reality is that we have 400 million guns in this country. Gun safety should be a national conversation, way before any discussions about background checks or so-called assault weapon bans. Now there's talks about banning guns in movies. Again, stupid conversations. We've been using guns in movies since the 1930s, and there's only been 3 fatal accidents involving a firearm that I'm aware of. This one being the 3rd. It's simple. Don't cheap out on the company you use as your on-set armorer. That's why, as the executive producer of this movie, Alec Baldwin, hiring an unexperienced 24-year-old girl to be in charge of the gun safety in a full-blown movie is reckless. What's even more reckless is that they brought live rounds on the movie set where they were using real guns. Truth be told, the armor on the movie set should be one of the biggest expenses because, as you can see, the consequence of hiring a bad and/or inexperienced armorer can be catastrophic. But insanely avoidable if you just take guns seriously enough to hire the right people instead of pretending in your mind that these guns are just prop guns and anyone will do. What happened was devastating because in part it was so avoidable. You're never too experienced to be a novice when it comes to gun safety. And if we spent more time teaching not only actors but the entire country gun safety instead of playing two-way politics, we wouldn't be losing lives so unnecessarily. You know, we talk a lot about empowerment in this country, except for when it comes to the Second Amendment. However, I can't think of anything more empowering than having the most effective tool to protect you and your family. So help me spread this message by liking and sharing this video with everyone you know. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment, because the Second Amendment, when it said militia, it wasn't talking about the government. It was talking about you. Also, if you want to know where to find the I'm the Militia shirt and merchandise, click the I'm the Militia link in the description section of this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And most importantly, make sure you hit that bell symbol.